Hello.
Hello and welcome to it's what is it, the ninth
Yes, it's the ninth.
time we've
It
done
must be
this
because
Thinking Out Loud
it's
podcast.
the ninth week of lockdown. So yes,
Yeah, it is. We've
9
done,
weeks
we've done,
today.
we've done pretty well to be consistently doing this for 9 weeks.
Yeah.
It's pretty much been religious how we've done this week in, week out since late March.
We've done very well with it. I think the first thing I've got to ask though this week is how's your foot, George?
no, it's all better actually.
Is it all good now?
Yeah, I don't think it was fully sprained. I think it was just sort of. I just had
You
a
are
chip in the old leg.
tumble.
You are a bit of a drama queen with that, George. Because I remember a time, it was either in year 13 or my first
Oh,
year
here
at
comes the
university,
pity pain.
when we were doing
Pity party, here we come.
When we were doing a gig together, and you did something to your foot. It was a gig at the Blues Bar, and you'd done something to your foot, and you were screaming and crying about it and yelling "Blue Murder." Then you carried on as if nothing had happened. Yeah. There was I can't remember exactly when it was. It wasn't that long ago.
So did it happen?
Yeah, the
I
concert.
can't remember that.
But you hurt
Pix
yourself.
or it didn't happen.
Was this pre John Moss days? Oh, sorry, post John Moss days.
I think it was. Yeah.
He left in 2015, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
God,
I just remember you yelling "Blue Murder" and crying like a baby. Well, no, you weren't crying like a baby. But you were being a massive.
Was he actually yelling "Blue Murder"?
You were being a massive drama queen about it.
To be fair, if I hurt my foot before a gig, I am a drummer. There is reason to cause lots of drama. Anyway,
lots of drama all the time.
Anyway, speaking of drama, Jeremy Corbyn's brother.
Yeah, Piers Corbyn.
God.
What an absolute fool he is. I mean, talk about drama.
The anti-lockdown protest. I get some of their points. I get that we're all fed up of lockdown. I get that we want to go back to work.
You get some of their points.
I don't understand any of it, to be fair.
Well, it's just sheer stupidity.
But I do. But what I don't understand is you have to go and protest like it's an Extinction Rebellion event.
It also puts the police at risk.
Oh yeah.
Well, exactly.
Absolutely.
That's the problem. And you're also distracting the police from their other duties.
Yeah.
That's
although
the other issue.
It just is hilarious that he got arrested.
Yeah, that's. But the thing,
out of everybody.
Seriously, do you know like literally anything about Piers Corbyn?
He makes inaccurate weather predictions, so his company have done. Seriously, he's been called out for it.
He's a meteorologist by profession.
He looks like a hobo.
Or should I say a hippie that refuses to grow up?
Because, I mean, the thing is that he's a meteorologist by profession, but he's a meteorologist in the loosest sense of the word. I mean, he's a climate change denier for a start.
Is he a meteorologist in the same way that I am?
Well, he predicted a white Easter in 1989, so of course he's stupid enough to deny climate change.
I mean, I don't understand how you can be a meteorologist and at the same time a climate change denier. He's also one of these people that started spreading a lot. I mean, he's also anti-vaccine.
Oh God, they're the worst types of people.
Which is a very dangerous position to take.
So basically, let's just give him. I'm presuming he's quite old.
He's 71, I think, 72.
He's a similar age to his brother.
Okay, so let's give him the virus then and see if he's still.
That's harsh.
Don't get out of the way. You're 70, you've had a good life now. Go and die.
That's the thing, isn't it? These people, it's a bit like sort of people that claim that God saved them from when they had an operation. Well, it's the doctors that save them.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't know how people rationalise that kind of behaviour when they say God save them or something.
But the other thing with Piers Corbyn is that he's also one of these people that started claiming that the virus is spread by the 5G pilot.
Oh God!
I know he's complete.
I would not trust that man at all.
You know, you're doing a pretty bad job when you're making Jeremy Corbyn look sane. I
never thought I'd hear you say that word.
Jeremy Corbyn is the most sane of the Corbyn brothers.
I'm not saying something to say the least.
Not a good
how insane he is.
Jeremy Corbyn still doesn't realise though that nobody wants him round, because the first PMQs that Keir Starmer did, Jeremy Corbyn was on the backbench still asking questions.
Yeah.
Well, the problem
he's like a fart that refuses to clear away, to be honest.
But the thing with Jeremy Corbyn as well, he's in the at-risk category that during the lockdown we're told to self-isolate. So he's technically breaking the lockdown rules there.
Couldn't he just set up Zoom, or does he not know how to work it?
Based on Labour's broadband pledge, I expect he definitely doesn't know how to work it.
Free broadband for all.
Going back to the pylon thing, what's the rationale for saying that it's spread through a pylon?
It's just an anti-Chinese thing, because Huawei is, of course, Chinese. They're a Chinese company.
But I mean, basically...
That's the main rationale, because the virus originated in China. Huawei is a Chinese country, is a Chinese company, so that's the link that they make. And yes, there are a lot of issues with Huawei. I don't think we should be using it to set up our 5G network, but it's ludicrous to suggest that the pylons that will be generating 5G.
How can you even rationalise 5G causing a pandemic?
I mean, the other thing is as well, basically everything is made in China now. So by that logic, they should stop using anything that's Chinese.
Yeah, exactly. That's the logic.
I mean,
that's pretty hard to do these days.
I mean, they should stop using their Apple devices because they're all made in China.
Oh, absolutely. For very crap wages as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean,
and the conditions are terrible that they work in.
But going back to 5G, I don't really get 5G anyway, because, I mean...
It's just faster than 4G, that's what I heard.
4G is fast enough. I mean, how fast do you need your phone to go?
Well, the trouble
Impatient
is...
people.
We kind of want to be ahead of the game with everything. It's purely down to competition in the broadband market. The issue that we've had for the last few years is who sets it up. And everybody's always thought about Huawei because it's cheap. But the issue that we have, of course, because the Chinese government has a stake in the company. So that leads to questions and fears over security and over data about whether the Chinese government will actually be able to launch cyber attacks through it. That's the issue, and I think there's some very valid reasons for not to allow Huawei to set up our 5G network.
I wouldn't allow it.
I wouldn't allow it.
Wasn't it Theresa May that said yes to it?
She started the initial conversations. It was actually the current government who allowed it to go ahead, but
it started under May.
It started under May, but what I would say now is that I think the government would have to think very, very carefully about actually going ahead with it, because they can still retract the offer to go ahead with it.
Oh, that's good.
Because the issue is there will be, if they continue to press ahead with it, thanks, sorry. If they continue to press ahead with it, there will be an almighty backbench rebellion. And And the thing is, Labour, who initially voted with the government to allow Huawei to set up our 5G network, if they know that there's going to be a massive, massive government rebellion, where
they'll go for rebels.
They'll side with the rebels because they will want to inflict a defeat on the government, which in this parliament is going to be very difficult because the government has a very large majority.
Yes. So if it was a couple of months ago, Labour would get away with it, basically.
The other thing is, I think once things settle down a bit, I think the government might actually ditch a lot of things because there'll be so much crap to clear up after this.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, they're gonna. Well,
Like
it's going to be interesting to see what the next couple of years bring in terms of changes. I think
HS2, for example, I think that'll go on a backbencher because I mean that's going to be the least of people's worries.
But the problem with HS2 is that it's been on the back burner for years already.
Since 2010.
Something like that.
At least it's starting, and
I mean,
they only approved it.
And
the start of it, yeah.
They've approved it the beginning of its construction. So the best thing to do with that, and the cheapest thing to do, would be to get it built.
Although it is a ridiculous idea.
Yeah, but
I mean,
it's a pretty ambitious idea at the same time, I guess.
Who needs to get to London 20 minutes quicker?
I
mean, if it was
people that want to get to London quickly.
If it was 2 hours quicker, I could get it, but it's not exactly.
No, but the issue, it's not.
Our world's
one
just
of the
too
least of
fast-paced
its
these
concerns.
days.
It's more about. I mean, I have my reservations about HS2, largely for two reasons. Largely because of cost, and largely because my worry is it going to attract more investment into the north, or is it just going to be used by people to get into London easier? That's the reservation. They're the reservations that I have. Now, I think if done correctly, it could actually be extremely beneficial for the north of England.
But they're not going
and the Midlands. That's why I tentatively support it going ahead. But it needs to link up with other high-speed rail projects.
Yeah.
So I know they're thinking of doing one from east to west and vice versa. Which doesn't go through London at all.
The only routes they've planned up north is Manchester to Leeds and Leeds to Manchester, but do with Newcastle as well, I guess.
To be fair,
or even Liverpool, I guess.
To be fair, the train lines in the north are awful. Yeah. I mean, for example,
across the country, it's terrible.
For example,
but, I mean, I think it's worth it.
It takes 2 hours. Oh, sorry. It takes
that was quite rapid.
It takes 2 hours to get from Harrogate to Manchester, which is ridiculous.
And it costs an awful lot of money.
Yeah, it takes.
You might as well drive or get the coach, to be honest.
Doesn't it cost about 40 quid?
Without a rail card.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's
a bit low, I'd say, but it's still pretty high.
I mean, you can drive from my house to Manchester in an hour and a half, and it doesn't cost a lot.
15 quid fuel, I presume, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It shouldn't. No, I mean, there are. I mean, and a lot. Well, a large part of that is, of course, I mean, they've still got the blooming Pacer trains, which I think have now finally been phased out.
Yeah, they're doing it on the Harrogate Leeds line,
and they're trying to reopen a lot of lines that were axed in the Beaching report as well in the 1960s. Like, for example, in one of the South Yorkshire seats I helped out in, they're in consultations to reopen a line in between Stocksbridge and I think it's Stocksbridge and Sheffield. So that would connect Stocksbridge, which is a very small, pretty isolated former steel town, and it would directly connect it to Sheffield with a railway link.
The one piece of defence I do have for the railways not being great is that obviously our railways were built a long time ago.
Back in the good old days.
Compared to a country like Germany that was obliterated and basically got a chance to rebuild everything.
Yeah.
We've never really...
It's a pretty young rail network in Germany, and so I think it comes across as a bit more modern compared to ours.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, our railway network has never really got a proper update.
Smash.
Yeah, I mean, the only significant thing which really happened to the railways was the Beaching report, which all that did was essentially completely axe loads of railways which were deemed not useful. But all that ended up doing was isolating a lot of towns and smaller towns from bigger towns and cities, and actually deprive them of a lot of economic activity.
Yes.
Yeah. But
For some places, very well, you can only use a car or a bus to get there, but not everybody has a car or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and bus services aren't as frequent as they once were, so it's a way of trying to rectify that.
They're also overpriced and too crowded.
Well, and I'm going to.
I avoid a bus whenever I can.
This is going to sound very unpopular. This is going to sound very unpopular, but it's true. The reason why we have so many issues with buses is because old age pensioners get it free, and that's wrong. I'm sorry. They should have.
I never thought I'd hear you say that, Matt Fender.
They should
I thought you'd be advocating for the old people on this one.
No,
you get it free, Matt.
No, shut up. The amount of old age jokes.
Okay, boomer.
Me on this. Oh, shut up. You millennial, you don't understand anything.
But to be fair, I do actually agree.
Yeah, because it's ridiculous. Because how many of these? Oh, think about it. Not many. It's the same with winter fuel allowance. How many of these old age people actually need it? They don't need it.
Not everybody.
But no government has got the balls to take it away from them because it's going to. Because the pension vote is the biggest,
the most
vote
turnout
in this country. If you piss off,
because they've got nothing else to do.
Yeah, exactly. If you piss off pensioners, which is exactly what happened in 2017 in the general election campaign that year with the dementia tax. If you piss off the pensioners, they're not going to vote for you, and they are the big voting demographic in this.
They forgot about it in 2019, though, the dementia tax.
Yeah, that was very quietly.
They've probably forgotten.
That's what I meant.
Well, the thing with the dementia tax.
Which was the party that had the dementia tax?
The problem with it was, it's actually not a bad policy because it was probably the most realistic we were going to get in terms of trying to sort out social care in this country, which really does need sorting out.
It just went across the wrong way.
It went across the wrong way, and it was explained really badly. And it shouldn't have been in that manifesto.
Yeah.
Because the 2017 election should have been solely about Brexit and the economy. And that was it. But
the dementia tax just killed it completely.
Well, it wasn't just that. Theresa May thought, I'm so far ahead in the polls here.
Strong and stable.
We're going to get a majority. I'm going to put all these things in the manifesto, which actually, a lot of them were actually decent policies, which could have done a lot of good if handled well. However, it was the wrong time to do it. The policies were incredibly vague. They were explained very badly. And I saw something about, because they launched the manifesto in 2017 for the Conservatives in Halifax.
They did, yeah.
And the cabinet ministers were all on the train heading up to Halifax for the launch, and they
went on the train to Halifax.
Yeah, they all went together.
Well, that's risky, I must say.
I doubt Boris did.
Oh, I don't want those peasants in my train.
But they'd all been given a copy of the manifesto beforehand, and they were all reading their relevant briefs of it. Jeremy Hunt, who was then the health secretary, got to his bit under health, and he saw the dementia tax, and he went, "We never discussed that." So the members of the cabinet weren't aware of some of the stuff that was in the manifesto. They hadn't discussed it with the Prime Minister.
Yes.
And so they were like, what the hell is she doing?
Not to mention that Corbyn gained seats in that election as well, which should never have happened. If the manifesto was correct.
That whole election
that
whole election was slightly disastrous on our front.
Yeah.
Everything.
The beginning of the end for Theresa May, I think.
Everything in that election that could have gone wrong went wrong, and more. I mean, it was just so.
It was just her.
It was awful.
And she didn't have the best media personality as well, I think.
No,
I think she was quite robotic, to say the least.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, it started off pretty well, actually. The first couple of weeks were actually going pretty damn well. And then it got to the manifesto launch. And I went canvassing the day after the manifesto launch in, quite a rough part of the seat we were targeting. And I was with another bloke. I was with another bloke, and we knocked on this door, and this old guy came out, and his wife was stood behind him. And we asked him, "Oh, how's that funny?"
I don't know. Sorry, I'm sorry for interrupting. Carry on.
Well, and we asked him how are you going to vote, and he said, "Oh, we were thinking of voting Conservative, but we're not sure now." And it was because of the dementia tax, and we were like, "Oh, God." I mean, they then said, "Oh, we're going to vote. We'll still vote for you," but they weren't as sure at that point.
But then again, they were old people, so they might have been a bit confused anyway.
It doesn't really matter because everything. It doesn't really matter because everything went very, very wrong for the Labour Party this time.
I mean, the thing is with the campaign in 2019, I don't think our campaign was particularly good in 2019.
Well, it wasn't. It
was better than 2017, but not outstanding.
To be fair,
anything was better than what we did in 2017.
Yes. To be fair, though, it wasn't a Conservative campaign. It was a Boris Johnson campaign.
Yeah, I get that.
But I think Boris kind of owns the media much better than Theresa May ever did.
Well, anybody does.
Yeah, I mean, even Corbyn did, and Corbyn's bland and incompetent. But even he made Theresa May, even he made Theresa May look amateurish.
He has the charisma of a mashed potato, in my opinion.
I mean, our social media campaign. I mean, if you think back to the 2015 election, what won us that election was our social media campaign. The social media campaign in 2015 was amazing, miles ahead of Labour.
We did a bit more social media campaigning than we did in 2010 as well, I believe.
Yeah. Well, but our social media game went right downhill after 2015. By 2017, it was almost non-existent. And Labour's social media game in 2017 was probably the best social. Was probably the best.
I think.
Yeah, it was probably because of Labour's 2017 social media campaign was probably the best social media campaign there's ever been. Probably even better than Trump's campaign in 2016.
And Jeremy Corbyn,
astonishing.
Jeremy Corbyn's tweets were quite popular as well. He had about 1 million followers at the peak.
He did, and then.
Whereas I think Theresa May didn't do social media very well.
I mean, no, she really didn't. I mean, she didn't think it was necessary for campaigning, which I'm sorry that is so outdated. In this day and age, it is. I mean, it did get better, and by 2019, our social media campaign was so much better. It still wasn't as good as Labour's, but it was so much better.
Even compared to this time last year, I think there's a lot more promotion of local activists as well.
It
might be because of Boris endorsing it a bit more, but I kind of get that feeling a bit more than I did under Theresa May.
The place the Labour Party always sort of mess up on is that all these young people say that they're going to vote for them, but they never turn out. So they get all this momentum, and then nothing actually happens.
Well, the other big problem that the Labour Party...
the students can't get out of bed to vote.
Well, yeah, I mean, youth turnout's always pretty low. I mean, everybody goes on about a youth surge in 2017. Youth turnout only went up by about 3% in 2017. Didn't go up by much. I mean, Sheffield Central, which is obviously one of the seats in Sheffield, has a very large student population. Turnout there was only 60%, which is low. 60% is a very low turnout.
It did stop Labour winning that seat, though.
Oh my! Well, they've always won Sheffield Central. I mean, we've never targeted.
You could put a monkey up as the Labour candidate in Sheffield Central, and it would still win.
Yeah, if you're
anywhere in South Yorkshire, really, that's traditional.
Hey, we've got 3 traditional Labour seats in South Yorkshire now,
Yeah.
so you can't really say
yes,
that
I keep on forgetting.
I was about to say
Brexit effect.
It's still hard to believe, even now, that we've got.
I was going to say,
I couldn't believe it when the Conservatives won seats like Burnley, Great Grimsby, and Scunthorpe. Never thought that was Scunthorpe. Grandma, if you're watching, we're going to trash Scunthorpe now.
Although I think Calderdale was Tory for quite a while. I think they lost it at this election.
No, Calder Valley.
Calder
Valley.
Wales, isn't it?
Calder Valley and Colne Valley. They're in West Yorkshire.
Oh, I see. Yes.
We got both seats from Labour in 2010, Calder Valley and Colne Valley. Held them both in 2015. We lost Colne Valley in 2017, which was a big shock. We kept Calder Valley, but only by about 500 votes.
Oh, that's tight.
And then last year, we increased our majority in Calder Valley, I think, to nearly 6,000, and we regained Colne Valley.
That is quite embarrassing for Labour to have to go from 500 to 6,000.
I'd be interested to, if the pandemic hadn't happened, how Labour would have done in the local elections.
Pretty badly, I think.
To be fair,
we stood to gain a lot of seats in the local elections this year.
To be fair, the good thing is that because of all this sort of, pandemic thing, there was literally no news coverage on Keir Starmer. So most people don't know who he is.
The only time I've seen him is when he's making a comment about Boris Johnson or the pandemic or whatever. I've not heard much from him, to be honest, so far.
He had a spectacular backfire last week to Keir Starmer, because in PMQs he asked the Prime Minister a question about the advice at the start of the pandemic that the government laid out for care homes. And he basically did a bit of selective quoting from the government's own advice, which was that there was very little chance of there was very little chance of a pandemic breaking out in care homes, which was the official advice given to the government at the very start of the pandemic. Boris then said that was nonsense and that wasn't in the official advice. Keir Starmer then said it was and tried to basically get Boris Johnson done for lying to Parliament, which is a pretty serious thing to do, and try to get him back to House of Commons to apologise. However, the government, and he wrote an official letter to Boris Johnson as well, demanding that he apologise and return to Parliament to apologise. The government, however, then hit back by saying, you just selectively quoted, you didn't take it in context. It said before that this advice is probably going to change. As it stands now, the official advice is that there's not likely to be a pandemic in care homes. Keir Starmer didn't go with the context. He just said that the government's advice said basically all along, which was misleading, that there would be no pandemic in care homes, where it said at the start of the lockdown, at the start of the pandemic, there is unlikely to be an epidemic in care homes, but this information is highly likely to change. So that kind of shut him up. And he's meant to be a lawyer.
I'm not being funny, but this I don't mean this in a sort of dismissive way, but I don't see why everybody is so sort of surprised about the situation in care homes. I mean, there's not much that you can do. I mean,
but that's only because they've got 76-year-old Doris in the care home and they don't want her to die just yet.
But I mean, it's obvious that you're going to have to me, it's just common sense that you're going to have a bit of a situation in buildings where it's the most vulnerable people.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I find remarkable is that there's only been outbreaks of COVID-19 in 15 to 20% of care homes in this country. 80 to 85% of care homes haven't had a single case of COVID-19.
Or have they covered it up?
No.
Which
be unlikely,
that we know of. It may be higher. probably never going to know the true infection rate because
in case they forget,
because it doesn't display symptoms. But I live a few doors down from a care home, and they clearly haven't had a single case.
No, I mean, I saw something that some people were complaining that that the government advice was to clear beds.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But to throw the argument back at people that complain, if they'd have said keep the old people in the beds,
in the hospital beds,
there would have been people then complaining, well, why aren't you getting other people in? So whatever
I don't think you can win anyway with those kinds of people. Whatever the government does, you'll get complaints anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a total.
It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's an incredibly difficult situation for the government to comprehend. There,
not to mention it's unprecedented.
Do you keep
God, I hate that word.
Unprecedented.
Sorry, but it is about. Do you keep these elderly, mostly pretty frail people in hospital where they are taking up valuable space, or do you send them into a care home? And to be honest, you only really send people. I know this is going to sound awful, but you only really send people into a care home to die.
Yeah, there's only one way out of a nursing home:
not to
the grave.
Not to die, but to sort of to live whilst they deteriorate.
Yeah. Plus, nursing homes are the most depressing places on earth.
You worked in one.
Oh yeah, gosh, I have a lot of memories from that place. Rather not bring it up though.
No,
I knew a guy. He was the dad of the guy we went to school with. Really nice bloke. And one of his jobs for a time was working in a care home, and he loved the actual job, and because he was a very caring bloke, and he was very good with looking after old people, because in the household where he lived, also living there was a very elderly relative who needed a lot of care and all that kind of stuff, and he was the one who largely did a lot of the care, and he'd sit up at night with her to make sure she was all right. So, but my mum saw him at some point, and she asked how he was and what he was doing, and he said, "Oh, I was working in this care home, and I really enjoyed the actual work, but I quit just a few days ago." My mum asked why, and he said, "I couldn't cope with it in the end because you get to know all these old people really well, and you start to become friends.
It's easy to get attached as well.
You get attached to them, and then the next minute they were dead. So he couldn't cope with that. It was quite sad. So, and he just couldn't cope with that, and so he got out of it.
It's quite a grim job, let's put it that way. And I was only working in the kitchen. I can only imagine what it would have to be like to actually care for them, as in like their bottom. Not for me.
I mean, I occasionally had to. Well, I occasionally had to do it for my granddad, and trust me, it's not a fun job at all.
No, I mean, I could not do that. It sounds harsh, but even if it was my own relative, I just could not do that.
It's a pretty shitty thing to do, let's put it that way.
Partly, I think, because if I was... Oh, God, I've just got that.
It's quite brown as well.
Calm down. George, calm down. Oh dear. Anyway,
let's move on.
Yeah, I think we should get out of this rather crappy topic.
Oh, for God's sake!
Oh, somebody bring something else up.
Football? No.
Brazil.
No, we mentioned it last week.
What about Brazil?
What's going on in Brazil?
Basically, it's absolutely going up shit creek in Brazil at the moment.
So we're still on a shitty topic.
It's really not going well in Brazil at all. I mean, I mean,
did the health secretary resign or something the other week?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, but if you think the situation is going badly in the US,
Look to Brazil.
You don't know how badly it's going in Brazil. That is the US government.
Bolsonaro's a maniac anyway.
They are doing considerably better than Brazil.
Just quickly, what is the death toll in America at the moment?
High. I don't know the exact.
In fact,
70,000, I think.
You talk about Brazil. I'll search it quickly.
But basically, with the Brazilians, you've got Jair. I mean, we talked about him before. Jair Bolsonaro. It's not a great name. I mean, Bolsonaro is a proper lunatic.
Oh, he is.
He's very right wing. I mean, he's a big supporter. He's a former military man, and he's a big supporter of the old military dictatorship that existed in Brazil for quite a long time in the last half of the 20th century.
They tend to be quite crap at choosing presidents as well, the Brazilians as well. I mean...
they've done a terrible job the last
One of them
few
a few years ago got impeached and removed from office, I believe.
Yeah, that was Dilma Rousseff.
Oh, yeah, Dilma Rousseff.
Because because the thing is, I mean, the Brazilians really haven't done well in terms of choosing presidents because they had Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, who's popularly known as Lula. He was
not Lulu.
Lula, and he was he was a big cheerleader of the left in Brazil, and he
didn't go around like at the NFL.
no, but he's still very popular actually, and he nationalised a lot of industries. And initially things were going quite well under him. Brazil had a lot of economic growth under him, but then the after effects of his nationalisation and spending spree started to be felt when his successor Dilma Rousseff came to power, because Brazilian's economy started to go into free fall because basically they ran out of money.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where Dilma Rousseff, along with several other politicians, including Lula himself, got into very serious trouble over a series of bribery scandals, including that they were taking bribes from Brazil's nationalised oil company, Petrobras. Lula ended up in prison, and Rousseff got impeached and removed from office. She was then replaced by a guy called Michel Temer, who was also extremely corrupt. And then in the presidential elections a couple of years ago, they ended up electing this guy Bolsonaro, who, like I said, is a proper lunatic.
Yes.
I mean, his actual words when the pandemic first broke out in Brazil were, "It's going to rain. It's going to rain heavily. A lot of people going."
What an idiot! What an absolute idiot!
It got so bad.
It's just nuts.
It's got so bad in Brazil that the gangs in the favelas, which are the slums of places like Rio, they're the ones instituting a lockdown rather than the Brazilian government itself.
Wow.
That's how bad it's got in Brazil.
Here's the in America it's 90,263 deaths, and yesterday there were 19,000 deaths.
19,000?
God.
Yeah.
How much is the total death toll?
90.
90,000.
Oh, I thought you were...
Yeah.
Yeah. That's bloody high.
Here's a good one. Here's a good piece of foreign news. I mean, a lot of countries, including today, thank God, and the Premier League have officially announced they're going to restart training, which is good.
19th... Oh, that's tomorrow, isn't it?
No, they're restarting. They voted today to restart training.
The training, yeah.
With the remaining matches of this year's season to be resumed at some point next month. There aren't many matches left, so they can get them played behind closed doors.
Likewise with the Championship and Leeds United.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that again. Let's not talk about that.
Given your PhD level defence of Leeds United last week, I think we best avoid that topic.
Yeah, but
they have cancelled the League 2 season though,
and League 1.
Oh yeah, League
League
One.
One and League Two have been cancelled.
They also gave Celtic the Scottish Premiership title today as well, which to be honest was no surprise.
Yeah, no surprises there. But other countries have brought restart.
Oh my god! Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hang on.
It was a fart machine.
Of course,
we are so immature. We are so immature.
I can vouch. It was a fart machine. Sorry, I accidentally set the timer.
Harry, let's just. Why have you got
a fart machine?
I was playing with it about accidentally set the timer on. Carry on. Sorry.
So, basically, I have to wait now until Harry stops.
Sorry, but this much.
Basically, but other countries have already restarted their football leagues, like the Germans have with the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
And what they've done is put some cardboard cutouts of fans up in the stadiums, because obviously they're playing behind closed doors. No, wait for it. But the South Koreans have also restarted their league. But one club got into a bit of the K-League, but one club's got into a bit of trouble in South Korea because they accidentally put up blow-up sex dolls in the stands instead of cars.
Oh dear!
How do you do that accidentally?
Well, they thought they just got dummies, inflatable dummies, but it turned out they were sex dolls.
Well,
oh, God.
They clearly have no soul.
Oh, for God's sake. That was quite good, actually. That's quite a good joke.
They're going to play the Champions League final in August as well, I believe, which might overlap with the start of the new football season as well. So I read.
At this point, I don't really care.
Well, it's because Leeds are not in it.
I don't care about the Champions League as long as they get the Premier League and the Championship done. That's all I'm bothered about.
I think there's going to have to be a point where the strategy does change to just try.
Sorry,
you've gone, George.
Yeah, you're turning into an alien. George,
you've frozen
I'm getting a screenshot of this. This is brilliant.
You'd frozen like this, and now you're like this.
I can't see. I can.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Right, okay, you're back. No. So anyway,
what I was saying is, I think there's going to have to be a point where they decide that, you know, we're going to have to let people out and get immune to this.
Yeah.
Because they, as much as you know, people's health is important. Obviously, they can't halt the economy for much longer.
I think that'll be the norm for the next year or so. Having
the issue is
no spectators.
The issue that there is that there's no guarantee that a vaccine is going to be developed to combat this thing.
No.
And it is eventually, I'm sorry, but it is eventually going to have to get to the point where we can't keep everybody in lockdown forever. We're going to have to restart the economy to a considerable extent.
And that's going to take a lot of years to sort out as well, I should imagine.
A lot of people are predicting a much quicker recovery than expected, because the thing is that a lot of businesses have been able to stay afloat. What I think what we will see in the next few years is a much higher tax rate, because
I think the thing
so much money trying to keep businesses afloat.
I think the thing to remember is as well that this isn't like the 2008 crash where people had no money. I mean, the fact is a lot of people are still, you know, getting 80% or the self-employment thing, which means people will still have some money coming out of it because they've got nothing else to spend it on anyway.
Well, that's the thing. But I saw a very good quote actually. It was actually at the very start of the lockdown. When they weren't talking about the economy much at the very start of the lockdown, but it was a very good quote from from a senior economist somewhere, I think, and they said in the 2008 financial crash, banks, well, they were the problem in the 2008 financial crash.
Greed is good mentality.
Certainly one of the big problems, but now they're part of the solution to how we restart the economy after this crisis. It's completely the opposite way round to what happened in 2008.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think people can complain that the government haven't tried to help people because they've done much better than a lot of countries.
To say the least, it says a lot when the government's offered to pay 80% of the wage bill to people who are temporarily out of work. I mean, that says it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a lot of money.
It's a lot. I mean, but they can't keep doing it forever. And that's the thing. We have to start getting the economy restarting. Now,
it is an unsustainable thing to do it in the long term, I think.
Yeah. Now, whether this leads to different working practices, I mean, I think remains to be seen. And I think to an extent it probably will. Like I can't
working
remember if I
from
already
home.
said this. More working from home, yeah. Like I don't think that'll suit every business, but it certainly has seemed to suit quite a lot of businesses. Like
such as the IT profession, for example.
Yeah, IT, some recruitment.
If you're a plumber or
that.
Electrician, you can't. It's not like you can just work from home and do that.
Yeah, obviously.
So burglars can work from home if they found that desperate.
A construction
people are still like, we had the TV aerial man come round today, and all you have to do is not go near them.
Stay 2 meters away.
Just use common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of
which brings up my thing of, people that don't understand stay alert. Well, just use your common sense.
Just be careful. Yeah, I mean,
just be bloody careful, is the.
Yeah, you don't need a handbook to tell you exactly what you have to do. That's something that really pisses me off with our generation.
Letter of the law, people.
Well, yeah, it's like we need to be mollycoddled and told what to do for absolutely everything. Just use your bloody common sense, for God's sake.
Well,
we can't stay in this situation forever. It's not feasible.
There's some people also in other towns that are shaming people that are going out for their daily walks. I mean, they're doing what they're allowed to do under the government.
The thing with the whole
some people
like Matt says, you don't need a handbook, and it's kind of like teaching a child to cross the road. At some point, they need to do it by themselves, and just common sense.
You can't hold their hand for them until they're 18 and say, right, you're on your own now. Get over it.
But it's also the fact. I mean, life has a certain element of risk to it as well. We can't just.
You've got risk every day. Getting hit by.
Sorry, you're sounding like an alien again, George.
You like this?
Oh, sorry, Matt, I screenshotted you. But yeah.
You're still gone. You're still gone.
I've got another screenshot. This is brilliant.
Hello, you're back.
All right.
You're back.
Yeah. The thing about
this is just comedy gold watching your screen, George.
Thing about risk, I mean, you can get hit by a car.
Lovely.
I went out for a run today. I could have been hit by a car.
I did actually see a statistic that there is there's more chance of you getting killed by a car than from coronavirus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the point, but I mean
as long as you exercise common sense, you can avoid being killed by COVID-19 in the car.
Yeah, the point is, life has a certain element of risk to it. We can't continue to be in a situation where we're just on permanent lockdown until this thing goes away. We have no guarantee that it is going to go away. It is going to have to get to the point where, with a lot of other diseases and viruses, like, I don't know, seasonal flu, for example, we have to get on and live with it.
Look at something like there's still no cure for HIV, for example. No, and that's been around for a while.
You can mitigate it. You can mitigate it.
But you can mitigate this if you're careful.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of people who've had HIV who now live perfectly ordinary. Live perfectly ordinary lives. They have the medication. They take the medication.
Yeah.
and they just live perfectly ordinary lives.
I mean, COVID-19 is just in the infancy where there's been no real vaccine to be found, and it is life-threatening.
That's the point. The point. It's in its infancy, and nobody knows much about it. So people that criticise the government, criticise all you want, but come up with a suggestion.
Yeah.
Don't just criticise.
They'd probably be going, I don't know what to do if they were in the government's position.
But it's also the fact as well that any government was going to make mistakes when they don't have all the information. We still don't have all the information on coronavirus. And yes, the government has made mistakes. I think we probably could have gone into lockdown a bit earlier than we actually did, for example. And I think
But then there would have been people...
who would have criticised us for going into lockdown too early. Again, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
That is the counter. I do personally think that, for example, there was that Champions League match in Liverpool with Real Madrid.
Liverpool and Atletico Madrid.
Oh yeah,
March the 11th.
That frankly should not have gone ahead.
Yeah. I think that was the day the World Health Organization declared it a pandemic.
The Cheltenham Festival.
The Cheltenham Festival shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. That should not.
I mean, the way I see it with the whole stay alert thing is that there's two sets of people in the world. There's stupid people and people that use common sense. And quite frankly, you're never going to get through to stupid people.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, they're the type of people to say it's just a flu.
If you don't understand stay alert, then, I mean, for God's sake, we can't do much for you.
Well, the stupid people in this world are often the kind of people who want a 56-page manual telling them exactly how to live their lives.
How does this 56-page manual work?
No,
or they won't understand the wording of it, so let's put it that way.
It's like people that complain and don't vote, or people that complain and don't read manifestos.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or people who complain but do nothing to change their lives.
And people who complain and actually do go and vote, but they get it completely wrong, and they end up voting for two different people and brag about it.
Or they draw a penis on the ballot paper.
Yeah, there's been a couple of cases of that.
One time, a vote actually did count because the drawn penis was actually perfectly inside the box.
I've heard of
which is pretty nuts in itself.
One in 2015, when it was the then Conservative MP for Montgomeryshire, which is a seat in Wales called Glyn Davis, which is now a safe Tory seat. It used to be a Tory Lib Dem marginal.
Those were the days. Tory Lib Dem marginals were norm.
There's a few of them now, but it was he drew a perfectly drawn cock in the box next to Glyn Davis's name. It was shown to the returning officer, and because it didn't give away the voter's identity, and because it had been perfectly drawn within the confines of the box, it was declared a valid vote for Glyn Davis.
That's pretty ballsy.
Oh God.
Oh jeez.
There was quite a funny. There's a program on called In for a Penny, which is it's with Stephen Mulhern.
Oh, is that Stephen Mulhern?
It's completely ridiculous.
This on.
It's a very ITV program, isn't it?
Oh, I don't really watch ITV.
It's on after Ninja Warrior. Those two programs.
That's a good program, actually. Ninja Warrior. I enjoyed that the other night. Especially when Cammy was on.
The commentary on Ninja Warrior is hilarious, and when they cock up and fall into or bash their head on something. But anyway, on In for a Penny, they basically had a decibel meter and they had to shout, and whoever was the loudest won the money.
That sounds like my idea of fun.
They went up to this.
You win that, Harry.
They went up to this 84-year-old woman and said, "What's your favourite body part?" And she just shouted at the top of her voice, "Penis!"
She probably hadn't had it for 40 years or something. She was that desperate.
Oh, for God's sake. And on that note, we're going... On that note...
No, I don't think we should end it on that note. I think we should carry on.
I do have one thing I need to get your opinions on, and that's ties.
Neckties?
What sorts? Neckties or bow ties?
As in, ties, like we wear for school.
Neckties, I'd rather not wear them unless I absolutely have to. Bow ties, though, are cool. I love bow ties.
I like a good tie.
What's the point in them?
I think they make you look smarter.
I just never wear a tie unless I absolutely have to.
Every item of clothing has a purpose. You know, trousers have pockets and also cover things that don't need to be seen.
A tie just points down.
Ties have no
Is that
use.
the main purpose of a trouser? To cover your cock?
Well, stop it, Matt.
Ties just have no use.
Apart from nugging, apart from peanutting. I mean, sorry.
God, I remember.
God, yeah, I hated that.
Or if you had a long tie, you were seen as a nerd.
Yeah. It had to be
the shortest possible.
No, it had to be the same length as an A4 piece of paper, according to Mr.
In fact, I've got the old 2010 photograph. I'm just going to have a look.
Oh my God.
Why do you have that just to hand?
Harry, we're never going to see that on here.
No, I know, but it's quite funny looking at how weird those ties look.
Why is that just to hand?
Because I'm in my guest bedroom and it's in there.
I don't even have a copy of that.
So, no, neither do I. But
my mum likes buying these kind of photographs. Blame her, not me.
You think that the number one things that guests that come to your house would like to see when they stay is a picture of the students from Harrogate Grammar School.
Well, to be fair, they do look very nice.
When our year group was 13.
Which was nearly 10 years ago, I must add.
Yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't seem like 10 years ago.
No, I remember the day the photograph was taken clearly.
So do I. Horrible. It was a complete waste of time.
And you had very good long hair for that. Yeah.
Yeah, your hair back then was uncontrollable.
I better take a photograph of your long hair.
I still maintain, though, that photograph was the biggest waste of time and money ever.
Didn't it take an hour just to organise as well?
It did.
It took ages.
Yeah.
It took so long.
Basically, it took an hour to line up.
Line
up, do the photograph, and then actually get it finished.
We still have that bloody horrible shale pitch then at the school as well.
God.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Thankfully, I never fell over on that.
I did, and I cut myself really badly on the knee once. It was
good thing we got the AstroTurf pitch in year 9, was it?
But the thing with that...
They called it an AstroTurf. It was practically a beach.
Yeah, it was so sandy.
Not like the beaches of Barcelona, though. Let's put it that way.
They said the sand would sink into it after about a year. It didn't. I mean, the thing is...
It's not the most groundbreaking of pitches, though.
The worst thing about the AstroTurf, though, was if you played on it on a hot day, because it was so sandy, if the sand, basically, it was like a dust bowl, and it was just really unpleasant to play on.
To be fair, though,
you'd think you'd go to the beach if you're having football de soleil.
We were very lucky. Compared to most schools, we did have a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, we did.
Very true.
We really did.
In fact, even compared to the other schools in Harrogate, I think we got a lucky deal.
We could have had a swimming pool, but no, they decided to buy a clock.
Well, repair the clock tower, yeah.
I mean, nobody
only time will tell if that's a good measure.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, anyway.
What do I say?
On that bombshell.
Oh, I was quite enjoying that.
We have been going for an hour.
We've been going for over an hour.
That's not fair enough. I think we can squeeze a few more hours out. No, but seriously though, lads, I don't want to keep you all night.
Don't be squeezing anything out.
No, please don't.
I haven't had my dinner yet, anyway.
Neither have I.
Harry, do you want to do your sign off?
Oh yes, I would be delighted to do my sign off indeed. Well, if you want to hear more amusing stories, give us a like on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube. Thank you very much and have an epic evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh,